We're here with Matt Atchity, who is the editor-in-chief of RottenTomatoes.com. Now, have you always been watching movies your entire life?
Pretty much. In fact, when I was a teenager, I was a tour guide at Universal Studios.
Okay.
That's how much I love movies.
So you had the background already all set?
Yeah, definitely. And I've been at Rotten Tomatoes for just coming up on 5 years now as editor-in-chief.
Wow. Now, when you start off at a place like that, you must have to obviously show them that you know what you're talking about. I know if this movie's good or not. What are some of the credentials that you had to go through to?
It's all an act, really. Well, so to be clear, my staff and I, we're not reviewing movies ourselves. We're aggregating reviews from critics all over the country, all over the world, really. We have specific criteria for professional critics. People at the top newspapers around the country, some of the top magazines, some of the bigger TV stations and radio stations, and we put all of those together to run what we call our tomato meter, which is a measure of the percent of critics that like any particular film.
Okay.
And above 60% we call a movie fresh, and below 60 we call it rotten.
Nice. Now, when you go on and you're looking at some of the movies, I'm sure you've seen most of the movies out there. Do you see one you're like, no, that should be fresh. It shouldn't be rotten.
You know, that does happen from time to time. I'll watch something. You know, in fact, just this weekend, Mirror opened up, and the critics are really split on it. It's about 50% right now.
Okay.
I kind of liked it. I kind of liked it, but a lot of critics.
Is the one with Charlize Theron?
No. That's the one that's coming out in a few months. This is the one with Julia Roberts and Lily Collins. I kind of enjoyed it, but there are those movies that come out that I'll like that most of the critics. It does happen that my taste will run different, not all the time, but that does happen. But I won't just adjust the score just based on my taste. That would be wrong. Yes, exactly.
I know for me that there are sometimes I go to a movie and I'm not exactly sure what I want to see, so I go to Rotten Tomatoes and I go to see, okay, what did the people say about it? Now, do you do that?
I tend not to. I will. You know, I'm seeing everything, or most everything, before the reviews come out. So with me professionally, the trick really for me is to try and still go in to see a movie cold, which is really difficult because I'll start seeing reviews trickle in, and it will affect my expectations. Right. Now, what happens with me a lot is I'll go and dread seeing something and think, oh, God, I don't want to see this, and get there and be pleasantly surprised. Right. But it's really hard for me if I'm really excited about something that if it turns out to be bad, it's really hard. You know, I do what a lot of people do. It's really hard to immediately admit that it's a bad movie. It'll sometimes take me a few months to think back. You know, I was like that with Clash of the Titans a couple years ago. That came out and I thought, oh, that was great. Then it was like about 2 months later, I'm thinking, yeah, that movie was terrible.
Now what are you thinking? Because Wrath of the Titans coming up.
Oh, see, I went into that. I went into that thinking, well, the last one was terrible. By that time, I knew it, so I went in and saw it. I thought, that's not as bad as I expected, but it's still pretty bad.
Okay. Now Jack and Jill swept it all today. Do you think that they deserved everything?
Probably. I think, you know, with the Razzies and with Jack and Jill, you look at the cast that's in that, and everybody in there should have known better. You know, I mean, even Adam Sandler, like, he gets a bad rap sometimes. He can do good work. He can do funny movies. He can be a good actor.
He put out 3 really bad movies this year. What's your take on why do you think he's making all these bad movies?
They make money. Yeah. Right? I mean, Adam Sandler's one of those guys. He could care less what the critics have to say. I mean, I'm sure he probably personally cares. Right. And I hear he's a very nice guy. I hear he's great to work with. He's fanatically loyal to his friends. And, you know, if you could give your friends work, that's great. That's cool. I'm totally down with that. Right? Exactly. You know, I mean, a movie like Jack and Jill makes 3%, but people go and see it. Like, people still go see his movies. He still makes good box office, so he can kind of do whatever he wants.
Except movies like Punch Drunk Love or anything that's going to make people think.
Right. Exactly. Which, you know, of course, Punch Drunk Love is probably his best film. That's probably the best thing he's ever done. But his audience, like, ugh, what is this? Yeah.
Don't make us think.
Right, exactly.
Now, is there anything maybe that you were hoping would have won one of the awards, but Jack and Jill took it instead?
I would have said best ensemble, maybe. That was the one that we had users, we had audience members voting on. Right. 35,000 people, and it was really close with Breaking Dawn. Okay. I would have liked to have seen the Twilight movies get more awards because, you know, I complain to my friends about having to see 3 or 4 movies a week, and they're like, oh, it's so rough. You have to see all these movies. I've had to see every Twilight movie.
I haven't seen any of them. I'm happy
Don't.
about that.
Don't. I've had to see every one, and they're awful. They're terrible. Terrible.
I believe you. I'm going to take your word for it since you are editor-in-chief of RottenTomatoes.com, and I'm not going to see any of it.
Okay, I guarantee you, they're awful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Matt.
Oh, thank you.
Have a great night.
All right, you too.